Good evening, YouTube. This is Mr. Shadow of the Deakin Deck Regiment. Earlier this week, Mr. Fishy did a deck tech video. I've decided to do one as well. Well, his was Zedru, Group Hug Deck. Mine is based around Lazav, Dimir Mastermind. This is also a deck that kind of aims to come second. Like, it's a deck that doesn't care what happens. What it does is... okay, the main thing you need to know about this deck, it is really only as dangerous or as threatening as what everyone else is playing. Play it 1v1, it's not going to be too bad. Play it in a multiplayer game, things are going to get a little annoying because it will copy, well, it's a clone deck, so it copies everything else that everyone has that I like. So it will help, it's designed to just help group hug decks speed things up, or it can just excel aggro decks, or it can just do its own thing and copy other decks to just win. But it's not supposed to win. Anyway, like I said, the commander is Lazav Dimir Mastermind, so he's got hexproof. He's a 3/3, and whenever a creature card is put into an opponent's library into an opponent's graveyard from anywhere, he can become a copy of that creature. Except his name is still Lazav Dimir Mastermind. He is a legendary in addition to all other types. He gains hexproof and he retains this ability. So basically, he bypasses the legend rule. So I've got another card in here that does the same thing, but he's the blue-black version, and he's the commander. Okay, so I've separated everything into different categories of the deck. So we'll start with the land base. I probably should have done this a little earlier, but oh well. Thankfully there's not too much in here to sort through. But yeah, like this deck is very much not supposed to win. It's not designed that way. I designed it because I got tired of constantly building decks that were supposed to win but didn't. And so I decided, you know what, I'm going to build a deck that's not designed to win, and we'll see how we go. Okay, so let's start with the basics. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 islands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 swamps. A dual color deck, that's bound to happen, like relatively even mana base in terms of the basics. For the non-basic multicolored, I have Reflecting Pool. So tap to add 1 mana of any to my mana pool of any type that a land I control can produce. It's just to help me sort out some colors that I need. Dimir Aqueduct, Karoo land. You'll notice it. You might notice its foil. I like the foils. Watery Grave, Shockland. I'd say it's fairly necessary in the deck. I'm considering swapping this one out for the new Return to Rav version. Drowned Catacomb, more mana fixing. Tainted Island, it's quite good. Like it. Fair enough, I have to control a swamp to resolve the coloured mana ability, but it's still good in that way, you know. Darkwater Catacombs, it's a filter land, so you combo it with this, and you don't have a swamp. You can pay the 1 to get 1 of each. So it's not. So like I said, this one isn't too bad, mostly because there are ways to fix the mana. And of course, Command Tower, a staple in most commander decks. Okay, so let's get the lands out of here, and we'll move on to, I reckon my utility cards. Oh wait, sorry, I've still got my non-basic, non-coloured lands. So Rogue's Passage, just to make things unblockable if I need them. Orbog, more mana fixing, turns all my lands into swamps, in addition to whatever else they are. Vivid Marsh. It pretty much counts as a swamp. I've also got Vivid Creek there. They both count for, island and swamp, but I can remove a charge counter to produce one of the other if I need. I have Terrain Generator. Because I'm running at least 17 basics, it helps with the mana excel. Dusk Mantle. I know it doesn't seem like much, but again, the mana filtering with Dark Water Catacombs is good. Other than that, this is my deck for the Rav Rumble that we're holding. Basically, we need 15 cards in our deck with the watermark of our guild. As you can tell, I'm running Dimir, and there's the Dimir watermark, so I'm doing alright so far. Cabal Coffers. This one is very good. It's mostly good in a mono black deck, but any deck that runs with Orborg, it is amazing. Just gain a black for every land I control. And Temple of the False Gods. Another commander, I'd say staple, mostly because it allows you to get things out a little faster. Now on to the utilities. As you can tell, I'm a little nervous about the videos. This is my first solo video, and this is the second deck tech video. I actually got a lot to live up to going after Mr. Fishy. Okay, so my first utility is a Planeswalker, Jace, Architect of Thought. He's mostly in there just so I can. He's partially there for the neg-2 ability, but if I can get the ultimate off, sweet. Propaganda, it's just one of those cards that says, please stop hitting me. For the love of God, stop hitting me. Which tends to happen a lot. I don't know why. Harvengul Lich. So he is essentially a clone. Like, he'll fit into the clone pile I've got set up for you later, but he's more my recursion engine. He's a one-piece recursion engine. It's not much of a recursion engine, but it works. Archaeomancer. I run a fair amount of instants and sorceries, so he is a staple for this kind of deck. Plus I've got a nice little combo that goes off with him. You'll see it later. You'll see the other piece later. Dark Steel Plate. Equipped creature is indestructible. It's indestructible. Commander staple, really. Avatar of Woe. Because, I probably should have mentioned, this is also a mill deck. Because it's a mill deck, that tends to come up pretty quickly. The cost 6 less to play. He's just my destroy utility. Gets rid of annoying creatures. Bane Alley Broker. Draw Engine. And kind of excess hand. I can, use it to throw away, to hide things I might need later. Bloodletter Quill. That's a major part of my draw engine. Although usually I'm playing with Zedru, so I don't really need to draw. Again, Dimir Watermark, so one of my... Well, it's a bit hard to see with the light. There you go. Dimir Watermark, so it's part of the Rav Rumble and everything. Soul Ransom. This one is more just, if I see something I like and I can't clone it, then I'll take it. But it offers, second ability, discard 2, I sack it and draw 2 cards. Opponent discards 2, I sack it, I draw 2 cards. It's a way for you to get your creature back, when you want it back. Duskmantle Seer. Little Bear Hug, mostly because at the beginning of my upkeep, everyone reveals top card, loses life equal to its converted mana cost, and then puts it into hand. So it's a draw, for everyone, but at a cost. I can see why people might not like it, but I quite like it, mostly because, draw. You can never have too much draw power. Spellskite. Any blue commander deck really should be running it, because it is amazing. Just say anything is going to get hit with, say you're going to get hit with a burn spell for lethal damage. No, I'm going to pay 2 life or pay 1 blue to have it all go to Spellskite. Take that. Beacon of Unrest. Another part of my recursion engine. Mostly just if I lose Harvingor Lich, that's there to do the job for him. Especially since if I cast it and it goes uncounted, I shuffle it back into my library to use again later. Omniscience. Any blue deck worth their salt really should be running this. Zedra is probably one of the few commander decks that can get away with not running it. But yeah, basically it allows you to play anything from your hand for free, as long as it's out. It is brilliant. I've actually won games. I've won a game off this. Lightning Greaves. Like Mr. Fishy said, it's very much a commander staple. I use this differently. Like most people will throw this onto the commander. I'll do it in. I won't bother doing it in this deck because Lazav already has hexproof, so there's no need to give him this. But anything I want and anything I have that I'd like to stick around, I'll put this on it. I've got a combo with this in another deck of mine, another commander deck, which pretty much gives me almost across the board Shroud. But I can explain that in that deck tech video. Runescarred Demon. Now this guy is basically, when he comes in, he's a 7-drop tutor. I know that doesn't seem great. He's 6/6, he's got flying, so he can block for you. Plus there's a nice little combo that I can show you in a little bit. That allows you to pretty much tutor once every turn, if people let him stay out long enough. I actually just realized he's a foil. I have a lot of foils. I can't even keep track of what I have anymore that's in foil. Diabolic Revelations, bit more reliable tutor. Basically pay X 3 and 2 blacks to tutor for whatever X was, and then shuffle the library. This one's good to tutor on a mass scale at once, and with our Archaeomancer here, get out. With our Archaeomancer here, I can do it as often as I want, as long as I can keep Archaeomancer on the field, or as long as I can get it to the field multiple times. Spin into Myth, very much commander staple. Mostly because if someone plays a commander that you don't like, or say a Praetor like Vorinclex or Sheoldred, you use this. You put it on the top of that library, and then you Fate Seal too. So Fate Seal is basically the reverse of Scry. Like you look at your opponent at the top 2 cards of your opponent's library, and then you choose whether you want it to go on the bottom or the top. Well, which ones you want to go to the bottom or the top. So for 5 mana, that is brilliant. Simply brilliant. Now, this is a nice little card. It's a utility for me. Everyone else hates it for obvious reasons. In the Eye of Chaos. Now, it's a 3-drop. It's an enchant world. Something that you don't see very often. And what it does is all instants and interrupts are counted unless the caster pays an additional X, where X is the casting cost of the spell. That's a really old card, so the errated version would pretty much be all instants and abilities. Oh no, pretty much all instants, or anything with a mana, with a cost that can be cast at instant speed, or played at instant speed, is counted unless you pay X, where X is converted mana cost of the spell being cast. So it doesn't work on abilities, it works on spells. It is brilliant for stopping a counter war, or any upcoming counters. If you do not want your things countered, this is the card to use. And I seem to have dropped some cards, so just give me a sec. Stupid cards. So, next one is Cast Through Time. Instants and sorceries I control have Rebound. Now this is a very nice card, especially with some of the mill spells I've got in the deck. Hell, with just about anything in the deck that is instant or sorcery based. What it does is that spell exiles, instead of going to the grave from the stack, it exiles off the stack once it's resolved, and at the beginning of my next upkeep, it comes back onto the stack, and then it hits the grave from there. And I can cast it without paying the mana cost. So, say I've got this out, and I spin into Myth. This will trigger off the first time. It'll exile off the stack. Next turn, it'll come back onto the my next turn. It'll come back onto the stack, and I can do it again. It's a nasty little combo, but you know, there are worse out there. Sudden Spoiling. Now, for me, this is quite a utility card because I tend to get attacked quite often. It's very nice to have this. Basically, it's split second, so it stops counters. It stops anything else being added to the stack. In fact, the stack ends as soon as this hits the stack. And I can make one player's creatures 0/2s, and they lose all their abilities. So anything that had flying, nothing. Anything with hexproof, nothing. Everything they control becomes a 0/2. This is a brilliant utility card, and I'm very surprised by the mana cost. Just 1 and 2 blacks. Like, really? I would expect them to at least be 5-drop. Sins of the Past. Another little piece of spell recursion. So until the end of turn, I can cast an instant or sorcery from my target. When it comes in, I choose an instant or sorcery from my grave, and until end of turn, I can cast it without paying the mana cost, and it's exiled from the game instead of hitting the grave once I cast it, and I instantly remove this. So basically, this gives an instant or sorcery in my grave flashback. Of course, this was developed before flashback was a thing, so, you know, what can you do? They had the idea there. That's all that matters. Diluvian Primordial. This one is quite nice, especially because of the mill. Because I'm milling people's libraries, I tend to have a look through every now and then to see if there's anything interesting. If I see a bunch of instants and sorceries that I like, I will play this, just so I can, and then for each opponent, I can cast up to 1 instant or sorcery from their grave without paying the mana cost, and it gets exiled. So say someone has something like Time Stretch, take 2 extra turns. Okay, he's out, dibs on Time Stretch, gimme. It's one of those very nice blue utility cards, especially for mill. It doesn't need to be in a mill deck. It can be in a deck. It can just be in any blue deck or any deck that runs blue, and it will work because at some point people are going to play spells. They're going to discard cards. So it's a good all-round card. It doesn't necessarily have to be in a mill deck. And my final utility card, Spell Crumple. This is very much Commander. So you counter a spell for 1 and 2 blues, and if you do counter that spell, you put it on the bottom of its owner's library instead of the grave, and then you put this on the bottom of your library. So what you're getting is say someone casts a commander, you can put it on the bottom of their library the moment they cast it, or the moment you cast this, and then this goes to the bottom of your library. So you can, if you've got a tutor engine, you can just keep tutoring for this and keep putting things on the bottom, but mainly it's to prevent your opponent from getting their commander out again, or just, preventing the commander being out. Okay, so that's utilities done. So let's move on to the mana fixing. Like this deck, it may be a 2-color deck, so mana fixing isn't entirely necessary, but I've had issues where I've had more blue mana than black, and it's nice to have the insurance. So the first one is Realm Right. So say I'm running low on islands, I choose island. Say I'm running low on swamps, I choose swamp. Everything I have becomes that. So it's especially good with some of the Mana Excel I've got in the deck, which is also in this pile. Chromatic Lantern, more mana fixing. So everything taps for any color, and it taps for any color. So for 3 mana, that's actually quite brilliant, and especially since it came out in the set right before Realm Right. Soul Ring, Commander Staple, just adds 2D mana pool, but in retrospect, it's not a little thing to add 2D mana pool. That's quite good. You want that, So yeah, it's especially good if you're mana fixing. I run that in one of my other commander decks, which uses a lot of mana fixing. So Cage Sun. Choose as it enters, choose a color. Creatures of the chosen color get +1/+1 that I control. And when a land's ability adds 1 or more mana of the chosen color to mana pool, I add 1 additional mana of that color. So say I've gone Chromatic Lantern or Realm Right, and I've called black, and I've called black with this. Or if I tap my lands for black, I get 2 mana instead of 1. It's very helpful when it comes to Mana Excel and just setting up what colors you will need. My second Planeswalker of the deck, second final, Liliana of the Dark Realms. So she's very good for black decks. Like, she is amazing. Sorry, I need to sit down. I've got a dislocated knee, so I really shouldn't be standing too much or for too long. So Liliana, she allows me to tutor for a swamp as a +1. As far as Planeswalkers go, I have to say her +1 is probably one of the best that I've seen. But then again, I'm a blue-black player. I haven't really ventured out beyond blue-black. I've ventured into red and green, but that's about it. So her -3 is a mini mutilate, or mini anti-mutilate. So +X on -X, where X is the number of swamps I control. But 90% of the time, I just keep using a +1 and aim for the ultimate. So I get the emblem where swamps I control have the ability to tap for 5 black mana. That is quite brilliant. That is game-changing. I actually pulled off a really nice little trick with that in the last game that Lazav played. I basically generated 21 mana and milled everyone for a butt ton. So that's that. And Cryptghast. So whenever I tap a swamp for mana, add 1 black to my mana pool. I don't really, I see, you might see it has Extort. I never use the Extort. Extort is stupid. All of Orzhov is stupid. Anything to do with white is stupid. But yeah, I mostly use this for the black. And there was actually a discussion and a bit of an argument as to whether it was legal in Commander decks outside of white-black. We actually, like some of us from the Regiment actually tweeted Mark Rosewater, and we got the response saying that because the extort mana cost is actually reminder text, it doesn't count towards the mana profile of the card. So that was quite a nice surprise. I was quite happy with that. Now here's some of the nastier things in the deck. Steal Artifact. Basically for 4 mana I control someone's artifact. It's quite nice if I feel like stealing a Soul Ring or anything, but 90% of the time I'm not going to use that, because the deck is clone. It doesn't really want to steal, it just wants its own copies. Speaking of copies, clone copy enchantment. This really should be in the clone pile, but like if someone's got, say, Leyline of Sanctity out. Sweet, I've got Leyline of Sanctity for 3. You jelly, bro? So, you know, it's quite good. It has its uses. Mana Short. This card has come in handy a lot for me. I mostly added it just to stop certain people, because I know what they're like when they get a butt ton of mana, but this one has really come in handy in the time I've owned it. Basically for 3 you tap all their lands. You tap all of someone's lands and empty their mana pool, so even if they tap all their lands in response, it still checks the mana pool, so they still have no mana left. So realistically their only option is to play as many things as they can't, and if they can't, oh well, I guess you have to end your turn. Get closer to my turn. Vidalcan Shackles. This is just one of those cards that I try not to. I've used it a few times, mostly because, oh, you've got something threatening, I'm gonna take it, and I'm not gonna use it, but, you know, it's better it's with me than, you know, you threatening everyone else on the board with it. So it's quite nice. If someone has something with lifelink and I need life, I'll steal it, but just to benefit myself, and then I'll untap it to give it back to them. So, you know, it's not all bad. Sadistic Sacrament. This is one of the nastiest card in the deck, as far as I'm concerned. Because for 3, I search for 3 cards in someone's library and exile them. But if I kick it, I search for 15 instead. So for 10, I'm searching for 15 cards, and I'm selectively milling you for 15 cards. You've got 15 cards in there that I don't want you to have, like say the Lab Maniac, done, gone. Same with Eldrazi. Those pricks, I hate them. I used to run one, but not anymore. Life's Finale, my one and only board wipe. So not only does it board wipe, but it also allows me to selectively mill 3 creatures. So it's like, I see you're running a recursion deck. Do you want anything specific in the grave? Done. I'll throw it there for you. Drain Power. This is now this is the other side of Mana Drain. Not Mana Drain. Mana Short. So this one taps all mana. Well, taps all lands. Target player controls, and then I gain all that mana. So it's good. Like if I'm running short on mana, I'll play this, and I'll get what they have. I mostly use it against decks that either produce a lot of mana or, you know, decks that have similar colors. But yeah, I try not to use it too much. Conjurer's Closet. Now this one is what I was talking about when I said it's the certain piece that allows me to have like 1 spell recursion every turn, or 1 or a tutor every turn, because it exiles target creature at the end of my turn and then brings it back. Sorry for the radio silence, but this is what happens when you live with your parents. They annoy you. So, I've got my clones here now. We're on the home stretch. I've just got my combo pieces and mill. I know this is taking a while, but hopefully I won't be too much longer. Sakashima. He's basically the mono blue version of Lazav. If you notice, or if you look carefully, they both have double blue in their mana cost. The major difference between Sakashima and Lazav is dual color, Sakashima isn't. Sakashima pretty much has the same effect, has an inverse effect of Lazav. So when he comes in, I choose a creature, he becomes a copy of it, but his name is still Sakashima, he is still legendary. So very much like Lazav, he dodges the legend rule, but they're still legendary, so I can't have another copy of them. But where Lazav has hexproof, and the ability to basically shapeshift or clone based on what hits the grave, Sakashima has a bounce ability, so I can pay his mana cost, bounce him back to hand, and then I can play him again to clone something else if I want. Like, it's a nice little piece of tech, and he's quite good. He would have been my commander if I hadn't chosen Lazav. Oh well. So that's him. Body double. When he comes into play, I may choose a creature from my graveyard. If I do, he becomes a copy of it. I have almost no reason to not choose something, because he's a 0/0 for 5. For that, I'm hoping I can get something good out. And it's a graveyard, it's not mine, so it's not specifically mine, so say someone has Avacyn in their grave, boom, he's Avacyn for much less. Go away, Facebook. Evil Twin. He basically becomes a copy of something, and he has the ability to destroy, to pay a blue and a black, and tap to destroy the thing he cloned. So he's quite good in that respect. Much better than clone. So, I like him. Vesuvan Shapeshifter. When he comes into play, or is turned face up, yeah, he's a morph card. I may choose a creature in play. If I do, until he's turned face down, he becomes a copy of that creature. And at the beginning of my upkeep, I can choose to flip him face down, and his morph cost is 1 and a blue, so it's more like if I want to change him into something else, I can at the beginning of my after my upkeep. Stolen Identity. It's a new cipher card. Yeah, this one's easily recognizable as foil. That puts a token copy of an artifact or a creature onto the battlefield. With the cipher, that's brilliant, because I can just keep beating face and get copies of things that I like. I actually pulled off a little combo where I got, in the last game, where I got 8 Sarah Ascendants, I believe they were. No, 8 Sarah Avatars. Bueno. Cemetery Puka. Whenever a creature is put into a grave from play, I can pay 1. If I do, he becomes a copy of that creature and gains this ability. So basically, he's a pay-to-clone clone. Not bad, but, you know, he's usable. And for 3 mana, that's not bad. Dark Imposter, he's a clone at heart. Costs a little bit to clone something, but he gets stronger for each thing he essentially copies to a certain degree. He's not a true clone, but his ability kind of makes him one to me, because he gains all activated abilities with creatures he exiled. Doppelganger is quite good. Dimir Doppelganger basically pay its mana cost to remove a creature card from a grave from the game, and he becomes a copy and gains this ability. So, say someone has something in their grave that I don't want them to have, but I want. Pays mana cost, he exiles it, and he becomes it. So it kind of stops nasty recursion engines, but gives me the fruits of what they would have gotten. At least once off, anyway. Followed Footsteps, so whatever I enchant, I get a creature token copy of it. It's not bad. I mostly use it on things my opponents have, or, you know, for a nice little combo that I have. Cackling Counterpart, pay 3 to put a token copy of something onto the field, well, a creature, and flashback it for 7. Not bad. Could be a little bit better, I think, but, you know, Wizards made it that way, so. Okay, now on to my combo pieces. I really should be done in the next few minutes. So, Leyline of the Void, and Helm of Obedience. If this is in my hand, in my opening hand, I can start with it in play, and whenever a card will be put into an opponent's grave, they remove it instead. So when I'm milling, anything that gets milled gets exiled for them. I still keep a grave, but they don't. So it really stuffs up reanimation decks. I try not to play it that often. I mostly only play it if I have this in hand. So this is Helm of Obedience. It's an old card. Basically, I pay X and tap it to mill a card from my opponent's library. They keep milling until they've milled X, or until they hit a creature, whichever happens first. X cannot be 0. Now, the fun thing about this, and by the way, I have to sack this, and I get that creature. But the fun thing about this is, because of Leyline of the Void, anything I use, and when I use this, the milled cards are not going to the grave, so this just keeps going. So it will infinitely mill someone out, and then I can do it the next turn. It's quite a fun combo. I haven't pulled it off yet. I almost did, but Mr. Fishy screwed me up. And screwed me over, so. But what can you do? So, the next combo is Halimar Excavator and Rite of Replication. So Halimar Excavator is an ally when he enters the battlefield, or when another ally enters the battlefield under my control. Target player mills X, where X is the number of allies I control. And Rite of Replication. Put a token copy of target creature onto the battlefield, or kick it to put 5 copies onto the battlefield. Damn it. Stupid thing. Sorry about that. That was a little stupid. I don't even know how that happened. Anyway, point is, what happens with this one is, I put him into play, I then kick this, so I get 6, so I essentially have 6 copies of him. So that's 6 allies, checking each of the other 6 times. So that's, I've calculated it to be a 180 card mill right off the bat. So if I can pull this off, I can knock at least 2-3 people out of the game by 9 mana. So it's a fun little combo. I've pulled it off a few times. People don't really seem to like you after you've played it, but who cares? Now the final combo in this deck is Grand Architect and Pilipala. So Grand Architect, I can tap an untapped blue creature to add 2 to my mana pool, and I can only use that mana to cast artifacts or use the ability of artifacts. Pilipala, pay 2 and untap it. It's an untap mechanism. It's not a tap, it's untap. That's very unusual and different. But it's still affected by Summoning Sickness, so you can't untap it if it's only just entered. To add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. So even though it's not blue, Grand Architect can make it blue. So you tap it, untap it, tap, 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 keep going until you've got infinite mana, or you've got an infinite mana loop, and you can do just about anything with it. So that's about it for that. This combo actually works better in another mill deck that I run, but enough about that one. I'm running short on time. So Glimpse, standard in blue-black mill. Mill 10, fairly simple. Traumatize, one of the better, a really nice mill card. Your target opponent, mills the top half of their library, round it down. So say you're on 90 cards, you drop down to 45 instantly. It's quite a brutal mill, but kind of hard to pull off because everyone sees it coming. Lord of the Void. It's a weird kind of mill because it requires combat damage, but it's the top 7 cards, so it's essentially a fresh hand gone, and I get to put a creature down from there onto my side of the battlefield. Sort of body and mind. +2/+2 to equip creature. And pro green, pro black, pro green, pro blue. And I don't really care about the 2/2 green wolf. I care more about the 10 card mill. It's quite good, especially for 5 mana to equip and play. Well, to play and equip. Sanity grinding. I reveal the top 10 cards, and then for each blue mana symbol in the mana cost, so basically like this, they mill the card for each one. And then I put the revealed cards from my deck on the bottom of my library. Trepanation Blade. When the creature is equipped to attacks, defending player basically grinds, so they mill till they reveal a land, and my creature gets +1/+0 till end of turn for each card revealed, and they've milled those cards, so yeah, screw them. Consuming Aberration, quite a new mill card. It's a very nice one because its power and toughness are equal to the number of cards in opponent's graves. That is amazing. That is amazing in mill, especially in multiplayer mill. And whenever I cast a spell, each opponent grinds, so they reveal cards from the top of their library until they hit a land, and they put them all in the grave. So it's quite good, especially for a 5-drop. Very easy to pull off in Commander. Archive Trap. So if an opponent's tutored this turn, I can pay 0. I can cast it for free. Otherwise, I have to pay 5 to play it. And what it is target opponent mills the top 13 cards of their library. That can be make or break. I found it to be quite make in a lot of situations where I've played it. And Mind Grind. Each opponent reveals cards from the top of his or her library until he or she reveals X lands, and puts all those cards revealed this way into the grave, and X can't be 0, so X or white, X or blue and a black. This one I've pulled off a very nice combo. This is the one I pulled off with the Liliana emblem only a few days ago now, where I had X as 21. So everyone milled till they milled 21 lands. It was nuts. So basically, no one had any deck left. It was just a question of who would draw out first, and there was a lot of draw power on the board. Now I think that's about it. I'm sorry this video has taken about 10 minutes longer than Mr. Fishy's, but yeah, I've had a lot to say about this deck. This one is probably the second best deck I've ever built. It's the first one I've ever built like it. Most of my other decks are pretty aggro, so if you ever want me, for the viewers on YouTube, I have at least 3 other Commander decks to do deck tech videos for. If you want me to do more, just request. I've got Commander decks, I've got Vanguard decks, I've got a Yu-Gi-Oh deck that I can use, and I've got my new Modern deck, which is on the way, well, which is in the process of being built. In terms of Commander, I've got Kervek, so he's basically my punishment deck. You know, just you played something, you take damage, or your creature takes damage equal to the converter mana cost. He is a beast, but he tends to get me targeted pretty quickly, and I can understand why. I'm not going to complain about it. I've got Scion of the Ur Dragon. He basically becomes any dragon in my deck for 2. So he's a deck full of answers, especially with 5 colors in him. And Una, my preferred mill commander, basically for X and either a blue or a black. I choose a color. You exile cards off the top of your library equal to X, and for each color card that I called correctly, that is if I chose blue, for each blue card you exile, I put a 1/1 blue-black fairy rogue onto the field. I know that sounds very, a little fruity, but it works. It's a very nice deck. It's my combo deck. It is my pride and joy. Anyway, I think I've taken long enough. Time to sign off. So, good night, YouTube. I hope you all have a good night, and subscribe, recommend your friends. If you go to Deakin, look us up. We're usually in the back of Einstein's, and yeah. So, good night, everyone, and may your magic games be eventful. Good night.